What if the biggest story isn't just what happened to Charlie Kirk? What if the bigger story is what happened after his death? A controversial investigation, a growing battle between independent media personalities, public accusations, lawsuits, attempts to discredit journalists, and a question that should concern every American: who gets to decide which questions are legitimate and which questions are forbidden? Tonight, we're examining the controversy surrounding Candace Owens, her investigation into Charlie Kirk's killing, and the allegations of coordinated efforts to discredit her. But there's an important distinction. We're not going to present an unproven conspiracy as fact. We're going to follow the evidence, and where the evidence stops, we're going to say so. Charlie Kirk was killed in September 2025. The case subsequently centered on Tyler Robinson, who faces multiple charges connected to Kirk's killing. The case has proceeded through the courts, including preliminary proceedings, but almost immediately another story developed online. Independent commentators began asking questions about the official account. Among the most prominent was Candace Owens. Owens began publicly challenging aspects of the investigation and the surrounding narrative. Her coverage quickly became one of the most controversial media stories surrounding Kirk's death. Some critics argued that she was spreading conspiracy theories. Others argued that she was doing exactly what independent journalists are supposed to do: ask uncomfortable questions. And that's where this story gets complicated. There's a critical distinction between journalism and conspiracy theory. Journalism says, here is the evidence, here is the claim, here is what we can independently verify. Conspiracy theory says, this must be true because the pieces seem to fit. The responsibility of an independent journalist is to live in the space between those two extremes. Ask the question, find the documents, interview the witnesses, check the timeline, challenge the official account, and then follow the evidence wherever it leads. That standard applies to everyone. It applies to government officials, it applies to mainstream media, it applies to independent journalists, and it applies to Candace Owens. As Owens continued discussing Kirk's death, the backlash intensified. Her critics accused her of promoting unsupported theories. Former allies publicly criticized her. Some conservative commentators demanded that the discussion stop, and Owens increasingly portrayed herself as the target of an organized effort to silence or discredit her. There is documented evidence of serious public conflict surrounding her reporting. There has also been litigation. In July 2026, Charlie Kirk's former security chief filed a defamation lawsuit against Owens over allegations she made concerning Kirk's death. That's an important fact, but here's another important fact. A lawsuit is not proof that every allegation against Owens is true, and criticism of a journalist is not automatically censorship. Those distinctions matter. Now we arrive at the claim at the center of this investigation. Is there a coordinated network deliberately working to destroy Candace Owens's credibility? There are certainly signs of coordination in the broader media ecosystem. Political organizations communicate, influencers communicate, journalists communicate, public relations operations communicate, people share talking points, and social media algorithms can amplify the same narrative across hundreds of accounts. But that's not by itself evidence of a secret operation. So let's be precise. At this point, there is not sufficient publicly verified evidence to establish that a covert network is coordinating a campaign to silence Candace Owens. That claim requires evidence, emails, messages, financial records, instructions, meetings, authenticated communications, something more substantial than the fact that multiple people are criticizing the same person. And that distinction is absolutely essential. Because if we're demanding evidence from the people investigating Charlie Kirk's death, we should demand the same evidentiary standard from the people investigating Candace Owens. Zionists and FEDsloppers coordinated pile-on attacks of anyone questioning the narrative via X group chats. They shared Candace Owens' home address, targeted mass reports, and shared background checks. Whether you agree with Candace Owens is not the constitutional question. Whether you like her reporting is not the constitutional question. Whether you think her theories are correct is not the constitutional question. The constitutional question is, does the government have the power to suppress speech because it dislikes the questions being asked? The First Amendment provides, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. That protection is fundamental to American democracy. But there is another distinction we have to make. The First Amendment primarily restricts government action. A private citizen criticizing Owens is not by itself a First Amendment violation. A private media company deciding not to publish her work is not automatically unconstitutional. A private organization distancing itself from her is not automatically censorship. But government retaliation against protected journalism, that's a very different question, and that's why the distinction between private criticism and government suppression matters so much. The founders understood something about power. Power doesn't like being questioned. Government doesn't always want scrutiny. Institutions don't always want uncomfortable investigations. And sometimes the journalist who asks the wrong question at the wrong time becomes the most important journalist in the room. The press exists in part to investigate those who possess power, not simply to repeat official statements, not simply to reproduce press releases, not simply to tell audiences what they already believe. The American tradition of journalism depends on adversarial reporting. That means asking, what happened? Who knew? When did they know it? What evidence supports the official story? What evidence contradicts it? What remains unexplained? And perhaps most importantly, what evidence would prove us wrong? But there is a danger on both sides. One danger is institutional groupthink. Everyone credible agrees, therefore stop asking questions. The other danger is independent media groupthink. Everyone is trying to silence us, therefore our theory must be true. Neither standard is journalism. Real investigative journalism requires something harder: evidence. If the official explanation is correct, prove it. If the alternative explanation is correct, prove it. If an independent journalist makes an accusation, prove it. If someone accuses that journalist of lying, prove that too. The answer cannot be, trust us. The answer has to be, here is the evidence. So rather than asking, do you believe Candace Owens? Maybe we're asking the wrong question. Ask instead, what evidence exists? What documents have been released? What evidence has been entered into court? What witnesses have testified? What claims have been independently corroborated? What claims have been disproven? What remains unanswered? And are journalists, whether mainstream or independent, being given the freedom to investigate those questions? Those are legitimate questions about a case of enormous public interest. The greatest threat to freedom of speech isn't simply one journalist being criticized. Criticism is part of a free society. The greater danger is creating an environment where people become afraid to ask questions because they know the consequences of asking them. A journalist shouldn't be immune from criticism. A journalist shouldn't be immune from lawsuits. A journalist shouldn't be immune from fact-checking. And a journalist shouldn't be immune from being wrong. But neither should journalists be treated as enemies simply because they investigate powerful people or challenge popular narratives. The First Amendment doesn't guarantee that your audience will believe you. It doesn't guarantee that platforms will promote you. It doesn't guarantee that other journalists will agree with you. It guarantees something more fundamental. The government cannot simply silence speech or the press because it finds that speech inconvenient. And that principle doesn't belong to Candace Owens. It doesn't belong to Charlie Kirk. It doesn't belong to conservatives. It doesn't belong to liberals. It belongs to Americans. So is there a hidden network coordinating an operation against Candace Owens? Right now, the responsible answer is, the evidence publicly available to us may or may not establish that. But that doesn't mean every question surrounding the controversy should be dismissed. It means we investigate, we verify, we challenge, we document, and we follow the evidence.